Hi everyone, my name is Chantel and this is my presentation. Today the essay question I have chosen is question number 4 to discuss the importance of gender or class to our understandings of either family, work or education. In line with this questioning, I have chosen to further explore the topic of women in the workforce and the roles gender plays within the domestic relationships. This presentation will explore how the role of women has evolved over time in both the home and the workforce. We will explore the following aspects of gender roles for women: the gender division of housework and the division of domestic labour. Relationships have traditionally held gender-specific roles within the household. Some would agree this is a fairly old-fashioned view, particularly in the respect of how women's gender roles are viewed, with women typically performing household duties such as childminding and overall household duties, while the male partners partake in the paid workforce. The man in our society is the breadwinner. The woman has enough to do as the homemaker, wife and mother. Dorothy Fields. From then to now, over the decades, women have been fighting the status quo, aiming to break the glass ceiling and achieve equal rights to men. The women's movement begun over 100 years ago, and women won the right to vote in 1901 and have since continued their battle fighting equal rights and employment opportunities. This was finally achieved in the feminist movement in the late 1960s, in areas such as wage increases, sexual discrimination, human rights and equal opportunity. In Australia, the women's movement succeeded in winning the right for women to vote in 1902. It was then during the First World War that the presence of women in the workforce grew, although the roles they were allowed to participate remained restricted. In the Second World War, women were given the chance to take on male roles. As the men were off fighting the war, the women were left behind to farm, operate restricted military duties, and nurse the wounded. In 1943, we saw the first women to be elected into federal government. One of the most controversial successes for women was the pill, which was awarded to Australian married women at first in 1961, and later to all women, allowing women the same sexual freedom as men. Following this significant win in 1969, we saw the introduction of equal pay, and in 1983, Australia signed the United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women. These newfound freedoms opened many doors for women, particularly in employment and family planning, as it provided opportunities for women to have freedom of choice in their lives. Women now have the choice to work rather than stay at home. They can now vote, choose to have a family, marry, work in any role they wish to, participate in sport, and finally wear whatever they wish. The traditional role of women in the household. Traditionally speaking, women were seen primarily to take care of the house, husband, and children, while men went out to the workforce. This worldview was one common in many cultures worldwide and is supported by Weber's theory of family. When Crichton explains Weber's theory of family and looks at the relationship between sex and marriage and the gender roles of women and men, Weber's analysis on the family life separates into two areas, one that focuses on the household and one that focuses on the kinship and how they interrelate with one another. Through this analysis, Weber explains the role of women and men in sex and marriage and the logistics of the household. He notes that women's sexuality is used as a form of exchange for counterparts. This view is a very traditional and old-fashioned one that would anger many in current times. The division of domestic labour. As women have increased their presence in the workforce, there has been a change in the expectations and norms for women in the workplace. These positions have evolved, ensuring there is only a small fraction of employment that remains male-specific. With the introduction of a work and life balance, women are working as much as men and are sharing parenting and participating more in family and domestic responsibilities. Here we see an increase in employment rates between 1996 and 2006 for women in all age groups. Additionally, Australia holds one of the highest part-time employment rates for women, particularly between childbearing ages of 30 to 44. Women now have choices as to when and how they will have families and are prioritising in a different manner the past generations. Women worldwide are using contraceptive methods in family planning, as they now have a choice in the matter, An example of this is in the statistics gathered by the United Nations that indicated contraceptive use had increased by 13% in 1990 to 26% in 2012 by women aged 15 to 49 years worldwide, which were in married or in union relationships. These are just some of many examples of how young women are freer in today's society than those in past generations. Ironically, with the new freedoms and choices, women have found themselves facing a new struggle that revolves around women choosing to perform the stereotypical roles they fought so hard against in the first place. This struggle mainly appears in domestic duties roles and the choice women are now faced with. Domestic duties is a broad role that involves tasks such as house cleaning, washing, ironing, food, shopping, raising children, organisation and picking up after each other. It is widely known that in current times women who undertake paid work outside the home continue to carry a significantly higher load of unpaid work in the home to their male partners. One reason for this conflict facing women in the 21st century may be to do with the idea that women view themselves in a different light to men, particularly with childbearing and minding. Reisman makes a valid point in relation to this when she explains that women and men will continue to see themselves in different types of people, as different types of people, making it unlikely for women to be able to compare their lives to men. Whether they choose to view themselves differently to men or choose not to, women are socially placed by most cultures to fulfill their domestic duties. Additionally, it has been found that women do get some satisfaction and pleasure from engaging in domestic duties, and where financially possible prefer to stay in the home, whether raising children or not, and prefer to work at home rather than in their outside workforce. Interestingly enough, as a result, women are therefore embracing a new fascination with domestic duties and are now celebrating their empowerment to do so. They are becoming the master of their own universe. In correlation with this newfound empowerment, the domestic relationship with male partners has been found in some instances to become strained. This can be attributed to women's inability to move forward, and it's explored through Rebecca Huntley's position on how women sabotage any male's attempts to perform domestic duties through their perfectionism and even martyrdom. This position is only one that may provide an explanation as to why women are reluctant to relinquish the stereotype of a housewife role. Baker adds further to this with research where participants shared similar views that they were better off doing things themselves as they did not feel men were living up to their standards and ultimately found it easier to take on their tasks themselves. So while the women's movement has provided significant empowerment, advancements and progression, the struggle in domestic households and domestic labour continues to evolve. Thank you for listening.